Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, perfect.
What did you say?
How we doing? Can you hear me? Is everything good?
All right.
All right. So how we doing, guys? So I graduated last year from Fitchburg State, and currently I'm working at a game company called Terrible Posture Games with my boss, Joe Marabello. So I'm here to talk about networking in the game industry. Full disclosure, I'm not the best networker in the world. I don't think anyone is. But I have some tips and tricks that I would like to share with everybody, and see if anyone can learn anything. I have an acting background that has really helped me out a lot, and through theater, it really has helped me overcome a lot of obstacles socially, just talking to people, chatting it up, and really just trying to network and get out there. So with my acting background, really, it's taught me how to hold a conversation and try to not be embarrassed in front of people, and it's really helped me out and really just get a job. Something I wanted to mention is, when I was in college, I was always thinking, like, where do I meet all these people? Like, I know they're here, I'm told they're in Boston, but where do I go? How do I meet all these people? And at school, all my teachers had always been telling us, go to these meetups, and for the longest time, I hadn't been going. There was years at freshman year, sophomore year, I was just like, it's too much work, I gotta go all the way up to Boston. But then it dawned on me, like, when am I gonna actually meet people? I gotta go to places, and I got to get working. And so once I started going to meetups, I realized that, it's a lot easier than I thought. And networking at first to me was a really scary word. And once I realized, I came to some of these events, some Boston Postmortem, some Boston Figs, I realized it's really just making friends with people. And so some things I wanted to talk about that have really gotten me out there is volunteering for things and going to these meetups. I realized, when you go into these game design meetups, like, we're all here, we like video games, we like making video games. We're all nice people. There's a lot of nice people in the industry and around in Boston. I've met so many nice people. I haven't had a single bad encounter with any designer, anyone who likes games or anything. They're all nice, and that's what I've noticed, which is so awesome to realize. Developer after parties are also, I have found to be extremely important in, like, the peak of where to find networking opportunities. If you go to some of these events, I have found that, like, afterwards, after the event has ended, that's kind of the best time to just, like, look around the room, see who maybe answer some questions or talk, and be like, hey, that guy that's saying is really interesting, I want to talk to them. And so going to those parties and those after things, hanging around and just kind of seeing who's there is a really good opportunity to just start talking with people and passing out business cards. Going to a lot of these events increases your chances of getting a job. That's kind of the brunt of it. Some people say it's luck. I think that a lot of it is, right place, right time, where you are, who you meet, who do you talk to. And going to these meetups and events, PAX East, even being here tonight, can lead to a potential something in the future. All the connections that you can make here tonight, tomorrow, the next day, those connections that you make, their connections are your connections as well. You never know who has a job at wherever you potentially would want to work, or you meet somebody who knows somebody who, oh hey, somewhere at Blizzard Entertainment just opened up for the exact position that you're looking for, and they could maybe slip your name in there. You never know. So a big thing that I realized really quickly is that networking is just making friends. It's really just a scary word for saying talking to people and making friends. And so once I realized that, like, these events and, like, talking to people and, like, getting my name out there, it became a lot more simple. It became a lot more fun. Like, we're all here and we all have a similar desire and passion for games. And it's like, okay, so I connect with everybody in the room. That's pretty easy. For me, like, I am admittedly an outgoing person. I've done theater my whole life since the third grade. And I'm used to being up on stage, but I wasn't always confident. I wasn't always like that. And so something I've heard from people who are shy or more introverted is, fake confidence if you can. Try to fake confidence, even if it's just for a second. If you see someone, they work at a big, crazy job, and you would love to be at that job, if you can fake being confident for just 3 seconds, walk up to them and say hello, it'll probably go a lot easier. If you can just walk up to them and say hello, maybe shake their hand. And that's easier said than done, and that's definitely for sure. But if the more you try to fake being confident, the more it starts to feel natural. Talk to people at events. Pick a person, look around at the end of an event or during PAX East if you guys go, and look at someone and say, hey, that guy seems interesting. I want to talk to him or her. And just kind of like realizing that everybody, if you're a developer, you're into video games, we like games, you're into games. And the best advice I've heard from people, we're all nerds, and it's okay. It's really easy to approach people who like the same stuff as we do. So once you kind of realize that and settle on it, it just became a lot easier for myself, and I think that's a good thing to realize. A lot of us are into the same things. When I am looking at people that I'm interested in speaking with or interested in learning more about them, if there is a second guess in my head, it's like, oh wow, they have a huge AAA job at some crazy industry that I could only dream of being at, I like to plan it out in my head. Think of what's that first question that I can come up to someone and be like, hey, how'd you get into the industry? Or, hey, I heard you're working at so-and-so AAA studio. Like, what's it like? I like to think of what's my first question, how I can just get in there to kind of bridge that gap of being like, ooh, how do I go up to this person? So if you could think of a simple question, just to say hello, it makes it a lot easier than sitting there being like, okay, when I get up to them, what do I say? Yeah, and the easiest thing that you can work on, I say this to most people if I can't think of anything, is, hey, I heard you worked on so-and-so, and they'll probably just go off talking about it. But the biggest thing is know when to do it. If you see people talking, especially on a one-on-one situation, they're having a conversation, I think that is the hardest approach. I'm sure we've all been there where you see someone you would like to get to know or talk to more, but they're having a conversation with somebody else. They're talking on a one-on-one basis, and it's like, how do I get in there? Do I wait around and just wait for my opportunity? That's definitely the hardest. If you see someone by their own selves, that's an easier one to go up to. They're not talking to anyone. That's like the simple situation. If they're in a group, and you hear them talking about, I don't know, a game you're interested or whatever, that's a great way to just step in there a little bit and say, oh, hey, I also like that thing a lot. The one-on-one situation is the hardest, and that's when you have to realize, is it appropriate for me to step in? Is it okay to talk to them? If they're, having a one-on-one conversation, you don't want to be rude. You want to try your best to not be rude and interrupt people. Something that always helps me is to just be genuinely curious about other people. So when I meet people and I see people at events or after parties or whatever, I'm genuinely just curious who they are, what they've worked on, and how they got there. And so the biggest question that I get from a lot of my friends who are way more shy and introverted than me, they always ask, what should I ask? They tell me, I've had my friends tell me, I can talk to someone, I can introduce myself, but what do I bring up to them? And so, specifically, these are some things that I just literally ask people, and I wrote them down. So when I walk up to people and I want to genuinely know more about them, hey, how was it working on such and such game? How long have you been working on it? Where did you start? What did you start doing? What are you doing now? And you can ask a little more personal questions too, do you like it? Or what's bad about the game industry? You can get a little more personal. You don't have to always stay surface level and say that. So if you want to ask, if you feel it's appropriate, you can ask a little more specific questions. When did you get your start in the industry? Did you go to college? What was your first job? And how long did it take you? I found that to be the most humbling. When I was still in school just a year, 2 years ago, meeting some people, and I was so curious, when I get out of school, am I going to be searching around for 3-5 years just looking for anything? And I've talked to people that have been super, super, super successful, and they've been yeah, I didn't find anything for 5 years. And that sounds like a bad thing, but to me, I took that almost in a positive way, because it's wow, here's this guy who's so successful, but it took him a really long time to get there. And so talking to people, I find that to be a really awesome question to ask some people that you kind of are idolizing in a way. Business cards. Business cards, business cards, business cards. I have found business cards to be unbelievably an easy way to talk to people, so incredibly simple. Once I got business cards my senior year of college, just last year, it literally changed the way I talk to people at networking events. It made such an incredible difference. Because when you're having a conversation with someone and you would like to stay in contact with them by any means, I always utter the simple phrase, hey, do you have any business cards? And as they go to get theirs, you get yours and you say, let me give you mine as well. So you get their card, you did everything, you had a conversation, well, what do you do with it now? You got a piece of paper, what do you do with it? Do you do anything? I have found if I want to contact people and I want to stay in touch, even if it doesn't go anywhere, I try to contact people within 2 to 2 weeks after I meet them, after I get their card. People are busy, and so are you, so don't feel bad, if you don't contact them right away, or even if it's past 2 weeks, you really want to talk to them, you would love to stay in touch, email them, just go for it. Something that's totally worth noting, you're not going to get a reply from everybody. I would say I only get a reply from about 30% of the emails I send out. Last year at PAX East, I met a ton of people, probably got like 50 business cards. I emailed a lot of them, only heard back from like 30%. And that's fine. Not everybody can respond to you, not everybody has time, and honestly, they might just forget. So don't feel too offended if you don't get a reply back. Add people on LinkedIn also, if you feel it's appropriate. If you really hit it off in a conversation tonight, tomorrow, at any event you go to, add them on LinkedIn. Nothing can hurt. I mean, especially if like in 3 years from now, you see like, oh, they started working at, Warner Brothers Games, like Ryan here. And then somewhere at Warner Brothers Games opens up a position that you're looking for. Hey, look, you know a kid who works at that place, and now you're friends on LinkedIn. Wow, that's incredible. Now you might have a job, or an interview, or something. Twitter is also a really good place for that. A lot of devs, especially indie devs I found, are on Twitter. Pretty easy to respond to. My boss especially loves talking to people on Twitter. People hit him up all the time. I find that Twitter's pretty chill place to talk to people about questions or anything. Something I do that's not entirely important, like you don't have to do this step, but I found it to be a nice courtesy. When I do meet professionals, especially in like the AAA industry or some people that I'm just like almost idolizing and like totally looking up to as a developer, I like to do a follow-up email. I find that to be just like super courtesy. When I go up to people, we talk, I have a conversation, blah, 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 I go home, I get their business card, and then I email them. I email them back and I just say this simple phrase, 2 sentences. Hey, blank, I really enjoyed talking with you about blank. Thank you so much for your time. I would love to stay in touch. Good luck with everything. 2 sentences could make the world of difference in just talking to people and keeping that connection. That's your goal is to keep that connection. If you meet somebody, big studio, small studio, whatever, if you desperately would love to hold on to that connection, email them. 2 sentences. What is it going to hurt? Thank you for your time. I really enjoyed speaking with you. Thanks. To recap, just 3 of my biggest points that I wanted to share. Networking is just a fancy name for making friends. It really is. We all have similar interests, and it's really just a fancy, scary word. Do you have any business cards? That's the 1 sentence that you got to remember. Just utter that sentence. If you have cards and they have cards, even if you don't have business cards, you can ask, hey, do you have any business cards? I'd love to stay in touch. Super easy. And then my last point that I've heard from other people talk about at PAX panels, and that I've started to adapt and think about as well, by going to networking events, you can increase your luck. You can increase your chances by getting into the industry, or getting a new job, getting the next thing, getting the next gig, whatever. By meeting more people, their connections become your connections. You never know who's going to make it in this industry. Make friends with all your peers, don't burn bridges, stay connected with people, talk to people, have fun, and just be friendly. Thank you guys. That was my talk. Questions? I would love to answer anything. Any questions at all?
Sure.
Yeah.
How'd you get your job?
How I got my job. Okay, so I was at Fitchburg State for 4 years, graduated last year, and I literally got my job half through networking and half through just doing well in school. Full disclosure, Les was the one that came to me and said, hey, Joe is looking, my boss, Joe Marabello, is looking for level designers, and I gave him your name. Would you be interested in that? I said, yeah, I'm interested in that, let's do that. And so after that, Joe hit me up through an email. He gave me a design test for a level design. He sent me over a bunch of different art assets, and I made a room. That was it. It took me about a week. I sent it back in. They liked it. And so they were like, cool, we like your stuff. Let's set up an interview. We had a Skype interview. I talked to Joe, who's the head, and I talked to also their head level designer, both in a Skype call. It took about an hour. Went really well, really was a good time. I got emailed 2 days later, and they said, hey PJ, we'd love to have you on the team, congratulations. And it went from there. So my senior year I worked part-time, and then once the summer hit, this past summer I worked full-time, and at the end of the summer I became permanent part of Terrible Posture Games. And now Mothergunship is over, we finished it in the summer, did an expansion pack, and we're working on a new unannounced project. So,
But also, so two things, the luck thing.
yeah.
What PJ pointed out. Like, you make your own luck in
Yeah.
that if you're not at an event, if you're not there, then nothing can happen.
Right.
When you're there, life-changing things can happen. You have to be there. A lot of it can be right place at the right time. But if you're not there, then it's not going to happen. And so the more of these things you can go to, it definitely increases your chances. Also, what PJ hadn't mentioned too, or yet, is that the other stuff that he did, it's not just that like, oh, hey, here is this possible job you can do. He already had a history with Joe Mirabello.
Oh, yeah.
Because he had volunteered, so he was going to go to PAX, and he volunteered to help him out at his booth. And so doing stuff like that will connect you to developers. People always need help in booths.
Yeah.
And so there's no real magic bullet to finding out like, oh, well, what booths can I help out at? But the more of things like that you can do, that's great. Really makes those connections.
That was a huge part of it, for sure. So this is actually in 2017, before I got hired, and we have a Facebook page at our school for Fitchburg State, and Les mentioned on our Facebook page, hey, Joe Mirabello, creator of Tower of Guns, he needs help at his booth, and he would love any volunteers. I was already going to PAX, and I said, hey, I'd love to volunteer. Thought nothing of it, had no aspirations of, oh, maybe I can get a job from this. No, just literally wanted to do it, have fun, and you know, just help out. And little did I know, a year later, I'd be working for the guy. It worked out so crazily. And when I left that day, I helped him out on the first day of PAX 2 years ago. Just went home, didn't think anything of it. And then the next year, I started working for him, and I helped him at his booth the next year, and I helped all 4 days at PAX. Honestly, just volunteering your time, helping people out, and talking to people, like, it makes a world of difference. Like, it's unbelievable. And as Les said, like, you have no idea the potential that can happen. Anytime you go to an event, you have no idea who you're going to meet and where that could potentially lead. So that's why I like to go to stuff, because you have no idea what could or could not happen. Yeah. Anyone have any questions? Anything? Yeah.
So I was wondering, do you have any advice for people who are, for example, either on the autistic spectrum or have other social disabilities, such as difficulty memorizing and recognizing names and faces? Because, I mean, as you said, basically networking is making friends, but for some people, that statement alone is like, oh crap, I have to make friends to network. Oh my gosh, what do I do?
Okay, sure.
So,
I don't have direct experience, of course, but what I could say, maybe what would help, is just like, if you can find a common interest with someone, you hear somebody talking about Smash Bros. Or something, you hear somebody talking about that, and you're like, hey, I really like that game too, and then maybe you find out like, oh, hey, I don't know if this would ever happen around in Massachusetts, but hey, I worked on Smash Bros. Or like whatever, and you're like, wow, really? Like, something like that. And so I think if you hear a conversation and you're interested in that conversation, it's, especially if you like those types of things, like, it's pretty easy, especially if it's in a group setting, to kind of jump in and be like, hey, I also really like those things. I don't know if that helps. Is there any more that you could help me elaborate on?
no, I think that's pretty good, although I do recall hearing some exceptions, which is typically if you're going up to a game booth, depending on the booth, you might want to know what they do beforehand, because I've heard some horror stories of, for example, a girl going up to the booth for, I don't know, I think it was Epic Games, and asked them, hey, what do you guys working on? And they're like, are you serious?
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't be too afraid of that. I think a lot of it was like, a ton of people in the game industry I've noticed are super introverted, like really introverted. And I've been at PAX talks before, and I've heard professionals talk about, like, everybody's, for the most part, is shy, introverted person. And I think that's almost humbling, because it kind of like relieves a lot of stress. Like, if you're going into PAX, for instance, and you're thinking, you know, like, oh man, all these big scary game designers, like, how the hell, like, how do I talk to them? once you start thinking about like, oh, they're just as shy as I am. Okay, it's kind of like helping. Like I remember I was at a PAX panel and one of the women who was speaking was saying, like, I'm just as terrified as you are speaking to people, so please, if you can come talk to me, that would be great. And I found that hilarious. Like, admittedly, I'm an outgoing person, for sure. But for shy people, realizing that most other people are shy in this industry, I think that's awesome. And I think it's a good way to realize that when you're approaching people. Yeah.
Do you mind if I tack on?
Yeah,
But,
please.
So
Go.
like, making friends is hard, but one trick is being consistent at going in meetups means that you see, like, meeting people once is nice, because then you're like, oh, like, they're cool. But if you keep seeing them, then you're like actually forming a legitimate bond and friendship. And like, there's like a crap ton of people in this room. I'm not gonna remember everyone's name and face, and sometimes you just have to be honest, like, hey, can you like remind me your name again? It's just like, I don't remember people's faces, and typically they forget my name too. So it's like, hey, we all forgot each other's names, and then eventually you stop forgetting each other's names. So
That's a super good point. Like, I ask people all the time, like, what is your name again? I'm sorry, I don't remember. I ask that all the time. So, yeah, that's a good point, for sure. Yeah, Les.
So, and a good in, it is difficult to just walk up to two people that are talking to one another. Although at various conferences and things, people are sort of used to someone. You know, you can walk up to them and kind of stand around and you know, wait till they're clear. But places where it's very expected that people are going to walk up is like when you go to a talk and someone that you're interested in talking to has done a talk, either GDC or PAX. Afterwards, a lot of people walk up to them and ask various questions and exchange business cards and stuff. Yeah. That's a good time to do it. Everybody has like license to do it then, because it's sort of totally expected. So that's a time when, you know, there's no reason to be shy, and we're all kind of shy. Yeah. But that's a time when you fully have license to actually do that, and so it just makes it easier.
Yeah. I'm gonna add one thing. Don't be afraid to talk about who you are. And like I'd say the vast majority of people who have come up to me and asked, like, hey, can I talk? Every once in a while, someone will say, I just wanted to let you know, like, maybe I'm a little shy. I just want to let you know I'm feeling a little nervous right now, or and I have two family members who are on the spectrum, and you know, just being upfront with that, it's very straight. It's very refreshing for the other person, because they go, oh, I understand. Yeah, okay, let's talk about it. Because there's nothing to be ashamed about. It's nothing to be concerned about or to feel like you need to hide. It actually makes it can make it easier, I should say, for some people to hear that and go, okay, that sounds great. Do you want us to like go someplace maybe a little quieter? Do you want to meet up in half an hour? We can grab coffee. Don't be afraid to like reserve time either and say like, I don't really feel comfortable talking to you right now in front of all these people. Can we get together in half an hour or an hour, you know, and just grab a coffee, or can I just sit down with you someplace? It's totally okay to do that.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to add on to your business card suggestion.
Yeah, please.
Which is super awesome, especially in this kind of context where you're exchanging them.
Yeah.
I usually try and take notes on what I talk to people about on the back. Yeah. I feel like it improves the response rate. So instead of just saying like, oh, PJ, nice meeting you, like, let's link on LinkedIn. Yes. If I said like, oh, PJ, like, thanks for your talk, it was really cool. I especially like your comment on business cards. I'm going to try and use that in the future.
Yeah, I've gotten that advice as well. I think that's like crazy important, because like you meet so many people at like meetups and throughout your whole week or whatever, that if you can remember too, especially if like you get their card and maybe like write it down, like, oh, we talked about this. Saying that in the email, and that follow-up email, is like really important, because like I have forgotten people too. Like, and people that I genuinely like really had good conversations with, I just forget who it was. Like, I can't think of the face or like whatever. But if they say like, oh, we talked about this in our conversation, I really enjoyed it. I'm like, oh, that guy, like awesome. Yeah, that's a super, super good point.
Going into that, I recall advice I heard when making business cards is always leave, let me pull
the writing on the back.
As an example. But always leave some white space. It's typically recommended on the back, but the site I was on didn't allow it, so I just, I don't know why. But so I just left a huge portion of enough white space on the front for people to write anything, because, I mean, if you were writing down what you talked about with them, they might want to also do it too. Right. So if you want to you want to give them space to do
Yeah,
so.
that's a super good point.
Help them remember you in addition to you remembering them.
For sure.
So
for sure. I need to do that more actually, because like I'll meet like a ton of people and then forget half of them, which is unfortunate. Even if I had to go to conversations with everybody, I need to write down more as well. And so I love when people have like a space on the back or anywhere on their card and just be like, we talked about this. It's like one single bullet point, like, oh cool, that's my, like, jog my memory. Yeah, totally, for sure. Cool. Anybody else? Just discussion. We're just talking right now. If you want to bring anything up. Yeah.
In regards to emails,
Yeah.
would you say it's a good idea to try and keep it on the shorter side, especially if you're emailing someone who is very likely to receive a ton of them all the time?
Probably, for sure. That's why, like, even in my slide here, like, I literally just try to get in and get out. That's what I think about. You know, like, I don't want to send, like, a dev who works on, like, a huge game or, like, is a big, here we go. It's like a big company or like whatever, like a huge thing. Like, even though I probably would want to, just to be like, hey, I love your game so much. Like, I'm so like thankful for all the work you do on it. It's awesome. And you can say that, but if you can summarize it, probably the best. Like this is literally what I do every time I would want to email someone or get in contact with them. Like legitimately this phrase, hey, blank. I really enjoyed talking about blank, and that's where I bring up, you know, what we talked about. Thank you for your time. Really would love to stay in touch. Super simple, 2 sentences. Yeah. And again, not everyone's gonna get back to you, but the people that do, like, it's pretty cool. You can keep in touch. Yeah.
So this is directly related and something that always gives me trouble. What's a good subject line for such an email?
Right? I know, I hate that. I hate that. I would say just like, I would say my name, maybe first, and then say like, really nice to meet you. Or maybe just straight up, nice meeting you at blank. It's also really important to say where you met them. Because if you meet so many names, if you meet like 40 Johns in, you know, a week, it's like, all right, I don't know which guy this is. But if you say like, hey, really nice meeting you at Boston Post Forum. I enjoyed your talk about blank. It's like, okay, cool, yeah, I remember who that guy is. So, yeah, I hate subjects on emails, yeah, for sure. Yeah, what's up, Riley?
I just wanted to toss something about there, about the conversation thing too, is I find like when, like, don't be afraid when you're talking to people to branch out about stuff that's other interests you have that's more than just about games. Like, conversations can be very memorable when you start on one subject and end up on something you would have never expected.
Sure.
Like, like with Alyssa here, I was talking about her about game design stuff, and then we were talking about like places we wanted to visit, like Utah, and because I've been there, and it's like that's not a line of conversation you have too often, so it definitely sticks in your head.
That's a good point.
Don't be afraid to branch off of it too.
Yeah, especially like if you find a genuine connection with someone and you're just like having a good time talking to them, yeah, just like treat them like a person, like you talk to anybody, you know what I mean? Like, it's totally cool to like talk about other stuff. You don't have to be like, only game design at this game design event. Yeah, no, that's a good point, for sure. Does anyone else want to bring anything up? Cool. Are we all set? You wanna, alright, cool. Thank you guys so much.
Sure.